This PowerPoint is brought to you by How to Cite a source and not lose points. So, first things first, the Works Cited page. The Works Cited page is a citation page for MLA formatted documents. You are all expected to do a Works Cited page, not a bibliography. And as the name implies, a Works Cited page means that the works that are listed on it have been cited within the paper itself. That means to say that parenthetical citations or endnotes are present in the text next to where the source is being used. Now, the go-to for citations is the Purdue Online Writing Lab. It's an online repository for how to do citations. This is the copy of the page itself. You can see the URL address up here. And then it has all these lovely little pages you can click on, and it'll show you exactly how to do the citations, including how to do endnotes, in-text citations, and more importantly, works cited entries. Many of you had some issues where I talked about incomplete citations. Either you didn't actually do the citation at all, which is plagiarism, out-and-out plagiarism, and from this point forward, if you don't actually attempt the citation, you will earn a 0. Or if you're not doing the citation at all, if that's not the problem, the other option is you didn't completely do the citation. For instance, the electronic citations, while it is optional and it does suggest options, it's not actually truly optional in my book, and so we need to make certain that we all are on the same page with it. Did dock points for this, but you do need to include the date of access. To learn how to do an electronic source like a website correctly, go to this link here on the Purdue Online Writing Lab when you get to the MLA citation overview, and go to electronic sources, click it, and follow the example. There's not optional information for the most part. It's largely going to be able to be located and found. Using a source like easybib.com or Citation Machine or Send a Citation Machine is okay, but you are still responsible for making certain that the citation is complete. If it's not, you have plagiarized. So your works cited page should look a little something like this. Now you can see electronic source right here. It's got a date. The date right here is your date that it was published. Here's the access date after the URL. You want to have the date of access for one simple reason. Electronic sources can change at the drop of a hat. If someone decides to make a change physically within the document, they may not necessarily wind up revamping the actual code line for the web address. If they don't do that, or they don't change the name of the PDF or anything else like that, it's different when somebody else looks at it than when you did, and you haven't had this bit of information present. They could accuse you of plagiarism simply because your source doesn't look like theirs. Now, there are some other options and all that are present here. These are dealing with different pieces of literature within this. Again, each one of them actually explains how to do it. I mean, you've got right here, you can see the actual citation for an inconvenient truth. You can see a couple of journals and stuff represented, etc., etc. Hanging indentions, another thing people had a question on, and here's how you do it. So you go to your works cited page. You can highlight, you can do one of two things. You can type works cited centered and then hit return and then just make the change for everything. Or you can type everything in, hit a return between each of the citations and then highlight them all. Whatever you choose to do, when you get ready to move it, this little triangle right here is normally right here underneath this one. You'll click it and you'll drag just the bottom triangle over to here. Sometimes it won't pick up the little triangle the first time over. You'll have to take it back, let it go, and then do it again. But when you do that, it creates the hanging indentation. This is how your citation should look, hanging indentation. This isn't centered. I know it looks like there's a lack of text over here, so it could appear that way. It's not. It literally is the first lines against the left-hand margin, and then it's indented in. In-text citations. This is what got most of you into some serious trouble, because you never actually credited your source whenever you used it. There are plenty of cases where I could clearly see that you were paraphrasing or even directly quoting from a source, and you never credited it. If you don't give credit to it, that's plagiarism as well. And truth be told, it negates the whole purpose of a works cited page, because every last one of those sources on the works cited page has to be cited physically within the document itself. It should be a 1-to-1 ratio, which we're going to see in a slide in a moment. Now, as far as what to put inside of it, typically the information that goes inside the parentheses is going to be based upon what's against the left-hand margin on the works cited page. Let's look at this. So you see how the hanging indentation works here, where everything's indented in and just the first lines are on the margin? Here's why. Because if you put the first thing that's in right here into the parenthetical citation, when it's time to go back to the works cited page and find the source, boom, you just go alphabetically down this list and you can easily find it. Let me say, why is there an inconvenient truth here and not up here? Well, and's not considered whenever you're doing alphabetical order. Inconvenient truth is what takes precedence. That's why this is alphabetical. That's why this is hanging indentation. So like if I was going to use Cornelia Dean's source, it would be open parenthesis, Dean, and if I have a page number, that number, and then close parenthesis. Same thing with Roger Ebert. An inconvenient truth is different because I don't have an author next to it, so what do I put? I still put what's against the left-hand margin. So it would be an inconvenient truth in italics inside the open parenthesis, and then a closed parenthesis, because there's not going to be a page number for an inconvenient truth. Again, it's whatever's against the margin, and it's always formatted the same way. So let's say if I didn't have John Gowdy, we didn't know who the author was, and this had been moved over, it would have been avoiding self-organized extinction. We could actually do just avoiding self-organized and put it in quotes, and that would have been fine. But again, whatever's against the left-hand margin is what goes inside the quote. And if it's a book or a periodical, usually there's a page number. If it's an electronic resource like a film or a game or something else like that, it may not have one. So we've got this one. So Dean 1 would be kind of how it would look like. So you have the citation, so Dean 1, where do you put it? Really kind of depends on what you're working with. In a short in-text quotations, say you have 3 or fewer lines. It's actually one of the more complex ones to deal with because there's some different rules to it. First and foremost, it goes just at the end of the sentence where the quote's being presented. If it's a couple of lines of it, it's obviously at the end of the last sentence, the last line of quote. But once the quote closes out, then and you're done with that sentence, you'll do the parenthetical citation before putting the period that ends the sentence down. What this period does with the citation inside of it, it says that within this sentence, the section of text that's marked by this one period, this source is used to either quote or provide paraphrased information to the piece. Now, if there's impunctuation for the quote itself, it'll go inside the quote. So if it's a question mark or an exclamation point, it goes within the quote. If it's a period, don't worry about it. It doesn't go. It'll be represented by this one fine enough. But if it's a question mark, inside the quote. If it's an exclamation point, inside the quote. You still do the citation, and you still put a period after the citation. Paraphrase paragraphs where nearly the entire thing in the paragraph, or most of it, and you really can't delineate or separate between what is what. The punctuation will be placed at the end of the last sentence of the paragraph, and then the parenthetical citation will go after that punctuation. Block quotes function the same way. This is when you have 4 or more lines. You do the indentation on 2 sides. We're not going to use them for this assignment, so don't worry about it. You place the citation after the end punctuation for the block quote, so it functions just like the paragraph. The reason it's after the last punctuation for the paragraph is it's essentially stating this paragraph has a ton of stuff and all that was influenced by this source, and I'm giving credit to it. If it's a direct quote, it should go within the paragraph with the direct quotes. If it's a large paraphrase chunk, it'll go at the end of the paragraph. If it's a small, just a few lines of paraphrase instead of a larger paragraph, it goes after the paraphrase, again, outside the punctuation. And the citations have to match 1-to-1 the works cited page. They must be used anytime research is used. And that largely is it. Do those things in your citing sources, and passing, and not plagiarizing. Please note, the future papers, plagiarism will be taken much more seriously now that you know the rules. Thank you.